well, because not only do I keep an eye on my boys all the way from the time I started them wrestling until the time that they get there now. I keep track of their overall records for forever. I mean, I've been keeping track of my son's record since he was kindergartner. I had him in his first wrestling match. And he doesn't know that, but he turned in from K through 12. And this year he had 124 wins. He led the team, 9th through 12th grade, he had 124 wins. He's in the top 5 at Leon Central Decatur as far as categories of wins. And leaving, of course, his mark on our wrestling room. And overall, of course, throughout his lifetime, he's had over 300 wins from kindergarten through 12th grade. There's no doubt. I mean, it's tough to replace kids like that, but the nice thing about it is that there's always others that want to step up and hungry for success. Okay? I congratulate Connor, and hope the best for him in the future, and thank you for allowing us to come down.
Yep, 2 things you could be most certain of is that there will be replacement wrestlers at Central Decatur, and the Christiansens will reproduce. Next up will be our Stanbury Wrestling contingent. They told me the stage is reinforced, so there'll be enough up here so that they can all get up. Briar Ginther, Jesse Oldham, Shelby Poff, Devin Gage, Kevin Stoll, Andy Luke, and Connor Rozier were all part of probably the most complete season that Stanbury has had within their wrestling program, and they've continued an ascension now to the point where it's getting more and more difficult to try to get any higher, but that's what they'll strive to do. I followed several of these wrestlers. Of course, I was terrified at an early age of their 160-pounder now, Kevin Stoll, ever since he was a participant in the Little Mr. Stanbury 4th of July contest, of which I was a judge to introduce, and then he started crying. And then I started crying. Laverne Smithson is Stanbury's head coach. Their All-Stars are next.
I too would like to echo the sentiments of the other coaches. I want to thank KAAN Radio and the Northwest Missouri Wrestling Club for sponsoring this. I have long been hopeful that we'd have something like this. I didn't know where and when and how we could do something like this, but I'm really pleased we get to see this where we can recognize our fine young athletes who put it out there to they put themselves on the line all the time. They're out there, there's no team on the mat, it's just 1 versus 1. And it's a sport that you fall in love with, you get hooked on, and you can't shake it. And it's just the most wonderful sport around. And these 6 of our 7 guys that are supposed to be here make up the nucleus of our team. We, being one of the smallest schools in the state, often hear from other people on MissouriWrestling.com of just how inept we are going to be, or just how inept we are going to be, or how small we are that we can't compete. These guys take that, they don't read that stuff, but when they hear stuff like that, they take it to heart and say, we're going to prove them wrong. Tell these guys they can't do something. Yeah, right. They like hearing that, and they want to show everybody that they can step up and do that, and they've done a wonderful job of doing that for me over the last few years. And like Stuart said, it's getting harder and harder to keep making it the best season in Stanberry history. We've done that for 5 or 6 years in a row now, and that's the goal for the future. These young men that we have here today do represent some of the most fun-loving guys. There's no need to worry about if they're loose and ready. I'm always worried if they're ready to go or not. They just have a lot of fun together. Practices, they're working hard, but if you come in and watch, you're going, you sure they're working? They're having too much fun to be working, but they're working their tails off all the time, and so that's what makes it fun for myself and my assistant. Every day we're looking at each other, scratching our heads, saying, what can we do to make them look like they're suffering a little bit because they're out there having fun? Start off here, go with, I guess we could go height ways or weight wise, but our light guy here is Briar Ginther. He's the shortest one here also. He hears that a lot. Briar was a match away from qualifying as a freshman. This year as a sophomore, he was in that bubble match again against a kid that he had beat handedly a couple times before, and then I had to stand there and going, what are you doing? Why are you on your back? And when he finally pulled it out, I said, oh boy, you're giving my heart too much trouble. And then he goes down to state, and who's he have to wrestle in the first match? Kid that won state. And we're like, okay, here we go again. Is this going to be a 2 and done? He comes out and finishes in 5th place for us at the state tournament. And as we were leaving the state tournament, after he'd won his 5th place match, that kid, the kid's father that he'd wrestled in the first match goes, I underestimated you, you're a stud. The kid just, I don't know, there's times we look at him going, which way are you going, what are you doing, Briar? And then he always seems to pull it out most of the time. He's just one of the hardest working individuals that we have, and they're all hard working individuals, but Briar, I think, sometimes knows too many moves. And he finally figured it out at state. If I only use 1 or 2 of those moves at a time, they kind of work. And so hopefully he can carry that out in the future for us. Jesse Oldham, our freshman up here, 119-pounder, and he weighs all of 119. I know when you put him up against every 119-pounder in the state, he's the smallest looking guy out there. He just looks kind of scrawny, but he's not. And I just enjoy watching this kid wrestle. And I'm glad I get 3 more years of it. I could just sit back and just watch him wrestle and not even have to say anything to him, because he tends to always be in the right spot at the right time. I've heard people talk about people's hips. It's not in the hips with him necessarily. It's just positioning at all facets all the time. He's always going. His motor never stops. Even though you might look at him and he's out there and he looks like he's already ran 10 miles and wrestled for 20 minutes before he steps on the mat sometimes. But when he gets out there, that's when the light kicks on and he starts going. And it's fun to watch. And like I said, I get 3 more years of it, and I'm excited to see that. Then we go to Devin Gage. Well, these last 4, before we go any further, had an interesting weekend this last weekend. There was a 3-on-3 basketball tournament.